What is hype? Hype is a brand in the market that's further along than the product is. As a startup, people give you the benefit of the doubt. Not many startups can say, look what we did, because it's hard to get traction metrics for unlaunched products. As a startup, you're judged from where you are today, which is nowhere. Hype can be very good because it means potential, like where the Turkish startup ecosystem is today. It's small, around 3,000 people, but it's extremely well positioned to be the Middle East and Asia's startup hub. The economy is good, you have great 3G, great mobile penetration, and most importantly, you're experiencing fast adoption of online payments. This has caught the eye of foreign investors. Come for the e-commerce startups, stay for the payments startups. Two Turkish companies that have used hype successfully are Trendyol and Markafoni, but both are backing the hype up with revenue results at an annual run rate of 200 million. The Turkish market shares similarities with the German one. You've got some clones, but then some unique bets, like Yemespeti, mostly targeting local markets versus international. Which Turkish startups are you guys most excited about? Any? Your own startup? The one that I should be writing about on TechCrunch? Geekix? Oh yeah, I've heard of this one. That's the one that we're also most excited about. Many would say that hype-wise, the Turkish market has reached a peak, and now is the time to start bearing fruit. That likely means thinking internationally. Fruits can be anything from exits like Git-Git-Yor and Sepeti, to high valuation leverage like Yemespeti's $44 million raise from General Atlantic, or seeing high traction like Peak Games or Hepsi Burada. Valuations have been really high in recent years, but there have been very few such exits so far. And everybody, especially VCs, are waiting for them. In a positive sign, there's a Silicon Valley-based Turkish mafia. Another way you can get TechCrunch to write about you is to email any of these people I'm about to list. The founders of SocialWire, Coding, Udemy, Groups, Citrus Data, and Aydin Senkut from Felicis Ventures are in the center of this mafia, creating hype for Turkey in the US and providing hope and relationships for the next big exit. While everyone waits for a big success story, the truth is that 90% of startups fail. 74% of these startups, according to some study, fail because of premature scaling, which means too much hype. Companies that scale properly slowly attract growth, capital, and customers, and eventually hire more employees. Companies that don't end up like this. Color had raised 41 million from Sequoia, and the Wall Street Journal here was saying, not since Google had we seen this. I don't know what they were smoking, but a year and a half later, the CEO is on vacation in Hawaii, and the company sold to Apple for less than 1/8 of their Series A, $5 million. So why go through all this hype if it's such a cautionary tale? Well, hype is very much the Silicon Valley way of building companies. People think that Silicon Valley is a magical place filled with amazing technologies. But we also have some of the best marketers in the world. The narrative is such: get your TechCrunch posts, get 100K users in the first week, sell to Google for 100 million. The sad part about this, or the happy part about this, is that sometimes it works. Sometimes exceptions happen. This startup, Mailbox, sold to Dropbox for 100 million. It was hyped, but very flawed. It didn't send attachments, for example. But now that's been acquired, it might live up to this hype, and that is where the magic happens. The magic is that when you've got nothing, hype, manufactured by blog posts, marketing gimmicks, you name it, paid ads, can actually help you raise VC and capture early adopter imagination. Like Andreessen. At 4 years in, he's already considered a top VC, despite not having decades-long returns. The fund raised $3 billion. They're rumored to have spent $50 million of that on building a brand, and now every entrepreneur wants to work with them. If you want to be in media, pro tip, hype and attention and constructing a big persona around yourself can be good. And as of Monday, it's going to be even easier to get into the hype business, as the SEC has lifted a ban on something called general solicitation, which means that startups and VCs can actively ask people for money via Twitter, Facebook, AngelList, and yes, blogs, which means my life is going to be even more noisier. So, when you go creating hype, the clock starts ticking. The pressure is on. And this can cause you to lose focus. Entrepreneurs can get blindsided by the hype around fundraising, equaling it to success. How many of you heard XYZ is a great entrepreneur because he's raised a lot of money from really well-known VCs? If color tells you anything, it's not the case. Hype can actually scare away the help that startups need. A large round raises expectations, a small round lowers them, and you're ended up being judged by the market and not the product. Our Crunch-based data actually backs this up. We took data from 20 overhyped startups, like Path and Quora, whose products haven't gained a lot of traction, and compared them to more successful, hyped-up startups like Instagram and Twitter. Crunchbase says that the hyped-up failures raised faster than the hyped-up successes in seed or Series A, but then had a harder, longer time raising in Series B. The hyped-up successful startups ended up raising more money in Series B, but this is because their well-defined product, after initial funding, ultimately got them more funding after. The trick is to let your hype write a check that your product can cash, like Uber. Uber, a private driver on-demand company that's now about to be so much more, is the biggest example thus far of hype working. If overhype means having the wrong product at the right time, Uber had the right product at the right time. This is a Gartner hype cycle as applied to startups. I made this 6 months ago, and this is an example of how fast these things can change. This is what the hype cycle looked like 6 months ago. At this point, Uber, on the x-axis is exposure, on the y-axis is time. At this point, Uber is probably where Mailbox should be, and Mailbox is probably where Zarly should be, as an example of how fast this stuff can change versus actual substance added. What does this tell you? Well, that, and I might put my job at risk here, but the media is largely unnecessary. I really believe this. You know, there's not, what do we do other than talk and type words into, WordPress? Nothing. For example, a startup that is seeing a lot of traction, one would argue into the hundreds of millions of users possibly, Snapchat tries to be stealth on purpose. Sure, if you're a consumer product, getting hype can be in your favor. But if you're an enterprise company, it really doesn't matter. There are tons of companies, StoreBison is one of them, storage companies, that have never been covered by TechCrunch, many, many successful ones, especially those launched before 2005, because we didn't exist back then. Well, so what's the best, if media is unnecessary, what's the best hype strategy through the risk? Well, actually build a great business. Ask yourself, instead of, who can I email at TechCrunch? What problem am I solving for my customers? Does my startup have a reason to exist? How can I make my service better? And here's one that you should ask yourself, whether you're starting a startup or working in a service job or in college. Am I improving things for the economy and society at large? One hard and fast rule in hype, as in life, is avoid over-promising and under-delivering, though it really is a case-by-case basis. If you don't believe me that I'm largely irrelevant, and you still want to have an easy exit for 30 million to Yahoo, do what this guy did and email me every day. This is Nick D'Alicio. He's the founder of Sumly, which sold to Yahoo in March. And he emailed me more than my parents. He also emailed every other blogger more than my parents and their parents. That's him, really hustling. So if you think that'll work, here's my email. Oh, that's too small. My email is alexia@techcrunch.com. And then this morning, I asked more of my team if they wanted to cover Turkish startups. And they said yes. So we've got Catherine Shu, and her email is shu@techcrunch.com. Mahesh Sharma, and his email is mahesh@techcrunch.com. And Kim Mai Cutler, and her email is kim@techcrunch.com. So if you can't remember that, please come up to me or email me, and I will get you in touch with them, because they've committed to do this. And thank you.